It is Friday, December 15, 2023, and this is your backcountry snowpack summary brought to you by North Shore Rescue. Just a little recap of the week. If you watched last week, on Friday, we had some surface horror and a crust, and we're expecting some weather over the weekend. And that played out pretty much as expected. On the Saturday, we got quite a bit of snow on the North Shore, around 25 to 30 centimeters. And then, unfortunately, the forecast for rising freezing level materialized, and by Sunday morning everything was really wet and soggy, and that of course launched a fairly small scale avalanche cycle. So it was just a new snow, and most of the terrain still being under threshold meant that small slopes at threshold could produce avalanche. And there is a number of reports of that throughout the sea to sky corridor, including a little bit on Mount Seymour. After that, early in the week, we got some clear skies. The temperatures were mostly positive, but there was enough outgoing radiations with the clear skies to have a crust forming. So not a whole lot of activity. And then as we moved further into the week, I think Wednesday or Thursday, there's a little bit of snow, about 5 to 10 centimeters, depending where you were. And then that snow was pretty wet, and there's not a whole lot that happened since then. Looking towards the weekend, unfortunately we're not looking at any significant weather coming. We're looking at pretty warm temperature. Actually, some models are calling for mountaintop temperatures in the double digits on Sunday. And with the snowpack so thin and hardly anything at threshold, we're not really expecting any avalanche activity. So to be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot of point in having a snowpack discussion. It's thin, what's on the ground is very well settled, and there's no snow that's going to fall on it this weekend that we know of. So we're not really expecting the hazard or the conditions to change at all through the weekend. What we haven't done in a while though is a good food-based analogy. Would you eat fugu? Like the puffer fish that needs to be prepared just right, otherwise it's highly toxic. Now, the way I see it, there's a few different ways you can answer that question. You can say straight up, like, I wouldn't have it, like fish is gross and I won't touch it. Fair enough. If you don't like fish, you don't like fish. Or you could also say, you know what? I'd love to try it because I heard it's amazing, but that stuff can kill you, so yeah, absolutely not. I'm not touching it. If that's your answer, you might want to reconsider the logic that led you to believe that backcountry skiing was right for you. There might be a fundamental flaw in there. Or you can say, absolutely, I'd try it if it's prepared by a chef, like a proper, well-trained chef. In which case, I'm guessing that when you go out skiing, you're hiring a guide every time. Because if you're not hiring a guide, what you're saying is basically, sure, pass on the knife, I'll give it a whirl. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should know, however, that in Japan, chefs will train for 7 years before they are allowed to serve fugu. But here we have a nice little weekend course that will teach you the basic, and if you're confused at the end, don't worry, because you have this nifty little card that's going to help you through it. Now, it may sound like I'm making fun of the AST program, and that's definitely not what I'm shooting for. I'm a huge fan of the AST program, but recently I was looking at numbers, and so I'm looking what terrain people get into, especially when you get sort of the Blackcomb backcountry and those areas that are getting really busy, really crowded. Same thing for Sky Pilot, and even a little bit here on the North Shore. And I'm looking at all these people charging down this big terrain, and now I'm really wondering why it is that providers are really struggling to sell AST2 courses. Because if you're going out charging down complex terrain with an AST1 under your belt and maybe a couple of seasons, you're basically butchering that poor fugu with a lawnmower. Even worse than that, if you're just following tracks, assuming that the person ahead of you knew better, somebody else butchered that fugu with a lawnmower, and now you're just drinking it with a straw, hoping for the best. So, you know, it's low tide. It's not a great start to the season. It's definitely a good time to sort of dig into the training, get more knowledge, get more training. You know, avalanche safety is something that is a lifelong process. Like the learning never really stops. And I'm really curious as to why there isn't a lot more people with an AST2 out there. So that's all I got for this week. This weekend, we're not expecting a whole lot. A couple of the local ski hills are open, and you know, they're quite aware that the product they're offering is not the quality they strive for. And you know, one way to look at it is like, it's not worth it, there's not much open. The other way to look at it is these are local businesses, and there's a lot of people, especially young people, who really rely on these jobs just before Christmas. Especially. So, you know, if there's no backcountry skiing to be done, maybe it's worth, you know, dropping at your local ski hill, do a few laps, grab a beer and a burger, and help out those local companies. That's all I got for this week, and we'll see you next week.